All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 13th episode of When the Heart Leads. This one wanted to be live, so here we go. This one's been long awaited, a long time in the making. If you've been tuning in to the podcast, you'll notice there hasn't been one in a few weeks. The last one was called The Alchemy of Surrender, and boy, did we experience it. I know I did, so it's been a few weeks getting this one ready. So, the title of this episode is Powers Arising. And if you're just tuning in, if you don't know, my name is Dr. Kate Newburgh, and I am the founder of Books of Eden Publishing and the host of this wonderful podcast. And I'm incandescent to be with you all today. So, powers arising. The one message, deep message that's been coming through very powerfully that said, okay, it's time, and you're going to speak this live. So raw, uncut, anything could happen, right? In this transmission, here we go. But there is one really, really powerful message that's been coming through that's for the collective. So for those of us who are, as I mentioned in the very first episode, coming down from the mountain, those of us who are awake, aware, who are kind of taking command, right, of our consciousness and of our life and looking around at the world and saying, I know that there's a better way, and I know that there's a lot of support for creating a better way, right? Those of us awake and aware, this is a powerful message for us right now. So I want to talk a little bit about 2023, right? We've entered the last month of this year. Whew. And what a year it's been. The message I've been getting, and as I've been feeling it also within my own life, is that this has been a very powerful year of initiation. And it does feel as though maybe there's been a couple of those years back to back to back, right? In 2023. Entering into it, we came in with a lot of hope, a lot of just maybe hope that things were going to be easier, maybe, but it's been a powerful year of transformation. And I have a good friend who runs a yoga studio who she picked that as her word for the year for the yoga studio, and she said I'm not picking that one again. But I think what, just to give some grace there, is that she didn't necessarily call in with that word the transformation. Like she was tuning into what the year was going to be, right? And transformation is a process that involves like that alchemization of the self, which means that you're not always going to recognize who you are or what's going on, and you're not always going to know in the moment what's happening. So it calls for that deep trust. And in one episode, I talked about the initiation of Mary Magdalene, where she was blindfolded for a long time and had to step and step and step in the dark, in the trust, right? And in a lot of ways, I think 2023 has felt that way. I have felt recently, like in the past few weeks with that alchemy of surrender, that there's been a little bit of a glimpse of what's happening. All right, so I want to offer that here. So the title of this episode is Powers Arising, and that is happening now. So something I've noticed, especially talking to people who are awake and aware, right? There's some things, there's some power, you could call empowerment powers, some things rising up. And I want you, if you take a moment inward, you will feel that coming up in you, right? You're going to have a sense of what it is by now. You're going to have a sense of what it is. And this power is something, and I'll talk a little bit about what that has been for me, because it was very unexpected. But you're going to notice something sharpening, something coming into clarity, something that you can do, that you've known how to do, that's been a part of yourself, that is a part of yourself, that's coming to the surface now. And this is something that it's arising to meet the conditions of all that is right now. It's a deeply empowering energy, right? And I'm getting the kind of the energy of Durga. So the Hindu goddess, she's undefeatable. Durga. She's undefeatable, and she responds in the moment. Her energy in the moment is the response to whatever is necessary in the moment for empowerment, for overcoming, for clarity, for whatever is needed. Right? It's a deeply loving power, and she's completely confident, and she's never daunted. She's completely undaunted. She's this kind of I experience her as this, she almost has like this lazy smile no matter what she's confronting in the moment. It could be, there's a story of how Kali Ma was born from her third eye, where she's confronting these really powerful demons. And from the outside, it looks like she's being overcome. But Durga is the undefeated. She knows no defeat. And in the moment, she birthed Kali Ma from her third eye. And Kali Ma took on the demons, and that was it. So there's never any doubt in her, right? And that's the power that's arising now in us. That's the power that's arising to meet the conditions. And it might be something in you that you haven't been expecting, right? Maybe you were focused on a different direction, and then suddenly this, whatever this power is, maybe it's a deep power of loving, soft compassion and gentleness. Maybe it's something else, right? And I'm going to talk about what that's been for me. In the past few weeks, you may have noticed yourself getting sick or derailed in some ways. A lot of people I know have gotten very sick, and last week I actually got very, very, very sick. More sick than I've been in a long time, and it was a complete, it was like, I tell people, it was like the powers that be, whatever they are, they hit the reset button. They hit the reset button and they said, you gotta stop. And they've been telling me for a while, especially after that episode on the alchemy of surrender, right? Take your own advice, slow down. I was like, I'm slowing down. And they're like, that's funny. You think you're slowing down. And I got so sick I couldn't leave my bed for almost 24 hours. And I didn't leave my house for 5 days, which I have not done. It's been a long, long time since I've been that sick. And when you're that and when you're in those spaces, right, it gives you a lot of time to think and just be, right? Just be. And what happened in that time was, and maybe you're experiencing that too. It was actually a really, even though it was difficult, right? And even coming out of it, I was experiencing some really powerful, like that movement toward stagnation almost. It felt like I had to just move through a lot of that energy. What happened was it created for me a lot of clarity. Like after that reset button was hit, I was coming out of it in a new way. So if you're experienced that, you have experienced that, right? Allow that to be the slowing down that you might need. A lot of us are experiencing that right now. So so in that, you're able to begin to pay attention to some of the things that are arising, right? I needed to get totally broken down to be able to see what was happening. And I'll give a really quick example of the power, like the powers arising in me that I was not expecting. And maybe what I like to do is sometimes, if you're just tuning into this for the first time, for in the podcast episodes, I have what's often kind of a larger, like theoretical framework almost that feels a little abstract. And then I always try to ground it in something really concrete and immediate. So sometimes that's my own experience, sometimes that's other things. But what I'm going to offer here is that a while ago, I was interviewed for someone, a wonderful woman in Boulder. She owns a magazine in Boulder. She found my memoir. She was really interested in it, and she asked if she could interview me. And the interview ended up taking 3 hours, so it was a long interview. We talked a lot. Covered a lot of ground. It's a very short article. So the person who is writing it, which, just side note, it was interesting to be the person not doing the writing, right? Being like receiving that the view of me from someone else. And what they started the article with was and I don't know if I'm allowed to talk because it's not out yet, but they mentioned in the article that I'm a sought after consultant. And what's interesting about that is that I was for a while. I had, if you know about, if you've known me or you've followed my work at all, you'll know that I did my doctoral research on the systemic nature of workplace burnout. I'm very passionate about thriving organizations. very passionate about working with leadership teams to create thriving organizations. And I was that for a while. And then I like to say, I say it kind of like crashed on the shores of COVID. Like when COVID hit, this was just like we were all in triage mode, and all of the things that I had been building, all of the people I'd been working with, a lot of the contracts they all kind of fell by the wayside. And I took that as internalized it as this isn't my path, right? This isn't what I'm meant to be doing. That was a few years ago. And since then, I've written a couple of books, right? I've traveled all over the world. All these things have happened, right? And I just kind of forgot about that whole aspect of, and it's weird, but I forgot about that whole aspect of self, right? And all of the time and the effort and the work and the research that I put into that. And just to make this kind of bring this to a point, is that suddenly I was being invited back into that space with all of the power and the research and the claiming of that again. And it was not what I was expecting, because if you have been following me, you'll know I've written two very spiritual books, very practical books as well, but very spiritual books. And I have a practice of doing shamanic healing work, and I was just kind of assuming that the power in me that was going to be rising up, or the thing that was going to be really oriented around that shamanic healing work. And kind of out of nowhere, I've started receiving kind of inquiries about all of my research that I've done on workplace burnout and how to work with leadership to create thriving workplaces. And so that's been a very so I'm offering this as an example of what maybe there's a part of your identity, a part of you that is very strong, that you may have overlooked, you may not have identified with yet or in a long time. And it's worth kind of looking at that and re-examining it. What is rising up in you right now? I know a lot of my friends who are sensitive have their powers of intuition have become sharpened and strengthened and deepened, and their clarity in their intuition is beyond anything that they've ever experienced before, right? So you might be experiencing something like that, and it's all part of it, right? The kinds of like the work that I do with the subconscious is going to be a very powerful part of moving into this iteration of working as a consultant again, right? Which doesn't sound spiritual at all, at at all, right? Which is why I kept overlooking it. But what's really coming up is that in 2024, right? So looking forward, when we're looking at this Durga energy, this thing that's coming forward, what's birthing now, right? The energy of that's very responsive to the moment, fully responsive to the moment, birthed from confidence, birthed from love, birthed from this complete lack of doubt that we are capable of meeting any situation, any condition with exactly what is right for us. That's going to allow us to be empowered and thrive, right? So that energy, so the Durga that's coming forward, right? When we're looking at 2024, okay, looking ahead a little bit at what's coming forward to meet the conditions of the world, right? So the why I keep talking about 2024 is that another message I'm getting is that this solstice is going to be a powerful reset. Kind of the solstice is going to be a time where there's a very powerful new emergence and a new cycle coming in. All right, so we're being prepared for that. So the power's coming up in you right now. We're being prepared for that, and it's only going to become amplified, right? That's why I'm tuning us into this right now, right? So that's why I'm talking about moving forward. So the solstice, in some ways, is actually kind of the new year, and that's coming up really soon, right? So so we're tuning into this now, right? What this energy is, it's not necessarily what your personal preference would want to bring forward, right? Although there is a deep affinity to it, right? So it's not necessarily what you think it is. What I'm getting is that this is the part when we talk about the alchemy of surrender, right? This is the part that wants to come forward, right? That wants to arise from within you and come forward. So I might have thought I'm moving into this space of doing a lot more one-on-one shamanic healing work, and maybe that'll be part of it, right? But what's really asking to be coming forward, and what the outside world has been kind of far more than just hinting, right? Saying like this is needed now, right? This is a very specific skill set. Not anybody else has this specific skill set, and this is what's asking to come forward now, right? This is what wants to arise in you and come forward. So it's a matter not of forcing anything, but of deep listening, both to your internal cues and the external cues. What are people asking you for? What seems to be really honed, sharpened, deepened, clear for you right now, right? And it's going to be that energy of self-actualization. So when I said that there's this skill set and this experience set, right, that I have that no one else has, that's true, right? And the power of self-actualization is doing, becoming, creating that which only you can do, become, create, right? Only you. There's a very, very specific encoding, soul encoding within your incarnation that is designed for something very clear. And that self-actualization is leaning into that which only you can do, become, or create, right? If someone else can walk in and do it, right, that's not it, right? That's not it. So it's something very it's almost like your signature. It's your signature, your energy signature. And it's gonna really bring into integration. We talked about integration in the last episode, right? It's gonna really bring into integration all those different parts of you, and especially maybe the ones that you've been overlooking or maybe downplaying or not identifying with, or thinking that maybe that's had its day or it's not that powerful. That's ready for a resurgence in a brand new way. Okay, so and for me, that's happening through this area of consulting, which again does not feel or not look, not sound very like spiritual, you could say, right? But all of me is going to be coming into this work, right? And including that skill set that I honed and honed and honed for so many years, and then kind of almost forgot about, right? So that might be happening for you. So what's coming up at the solstice for 2024, for the conditions of the world that we're going to be fully responsive to, fully empowered to meet, right? This is a part that wants to arise in you, and it might not be the thing that you think. All right. And if you really tune in, you're going to know, because you should have at this point been getting like messages internally, externally. There's some things, right, coming up that it's starting to get really clear, right? So that's what I'm getting at this time. So the other thing that's coming up is that all the realms are gathering in support of this self-actualization, right? This full integration of self. It's going to allow you to meet the conditions of your life and of the world in a really empowered way. All right. And why that feels really big is that you may have felt, if you were anything like me, right? This last year, 2023, possibly years before then, right? Sometimes it has felt like, and the way I put it is biking up a hill with the brake on, right? Like it has felt like moving sometimes through very thick, dense energy, right? Like not having your energy, your love, your light amplified back to you, right? And wondering where it's all going, right? And sometimes feeling that deep discouragement, sometimes, right? And it can feel like I'm trying to go there, and the entire world, universe is blocking me or making it harder than it has to be, right? And there has been a lot of that very powerful slowing down energy, moving through dense energy, right? Getting down into like the kind of those shadow, and I talk lightly about the shadow realms because there's already so much out there on that, but I don't see them as negative, right? They're just these places within that are asking to be enlightened and integrated, right? So mentioning that, but there's been a lot of that. There's been a lot of that confrontation, integration, right? The breaking down, and then this final, as I mentioned, for me, the breaking down of self in that illness that just lasted and lasted and lasted, right? So there's been this powerful humbling. If you're anything like me this past year, these past couple of years, very powerful humbling. Now all of the realms are gathering, and they have always been in full support of this, but now it's going to feel like okay, we took we took the parachute off the back. Like we are zooming now. Like it's going to feel it's going to feel like momentum, it's going to feel like acceleration, it's going to feel like traction. Okay? And that is a really powerful message right now that we really need, because sometimes it has felt like a slog. And I know, and you know, and we all know, like when we're looking back, for if we're going to be honest, like a lot of 2023 has felt that way and still continues to, right? So this powerful message of like this empowerment that's arising, it's going to feel like traction. We're going to feel like the wind at our back now. All right. And that is arising very quickly. So that's really important to lean into and to feel, right? To feel, because it's not just us out there making a strike for the world. It's an entire massive invisible realms, visible realms, right? All kind of uniting around this deep empowerment for meeting the conditions of the world, right? From a place of clarity, openness, and power, right? So that's all going to feel like more traction. So that's coming through, and that's important, right? I'm seeing people are kind of coming in and out here. So maybe you're tuning in right at the right time. You needed to hear that. It's a deep message of hope, and it's one of those messages of hope that we're going to see. It's like a divine promise. It's a divine promise, and those are never rescinded. They're always followed through on. So that's really important to hear that. Okay. So I've just got some notes here that I'm just checking through. Okay, there's another message coming through too about this, which is that this is when I said that we had a reset, right? This is it's a very powerful reset, and what's happening is that a lot of those things that have been lingering, and there are some things that have been lingering. And it's funny because I got that message from I was talking to someone, and she was saying, "Oh, did you get that that illness, right? That upper respiratory kind of flu illness thing?" She's like, "That's a lingerer," right? And I thought of that word linger, and I was like, "Ooh, like, am I going to be in this for another?" She was like, "Some people I know have had that's been lingering for months." So I'm thinking about that idea of lingering, right? What are some things, maybe health conditions, thought forms, right? Things that are just that have been lingering that just are you're done. They're done. Okay. So that's the energy I'm getting, the message I'm getting. A lot of those things are just going to be done. Right. So one example from my life is I've had like chronic kind of jaw clenching at night since I was very little. So you're getting some personal information in this one. But a lot of times, again, like this thing, since I was a teenager, I've had this. And I just got the message, that's done. We're healing that. It's over. It can't come into this next space. This is a reset. We're done. You're done with that. And I was like, what a relief. And how is that so easy after like how many years of dealing with it? They're like, no, we're done. That's over. That doesn't come with. So there's going to be some of those things, right? And you're going to feel it because you're just fed up with it. And you're just like, okay, I'm done. This doesn't get any more of my energy. It needs to be healed. We need to move on because I need all of my energy for integrating into this response to the world, right? I'm not putting up with this stuff anymore, right? There's a really powerful, and that's a Kali Ma energy. So we're talking about Durga, we're talking about Kali Ma right now. That's a really deeply compassionate Kali Ma energy of just done, it's gone, we're done. Right? Call it in. She will get rid of it for you and it will not come back. Right? And there are some things that just cannot come in this next cycle. They just can't. Right? And what's powerful about this is it's very, very probable that some of these things will be physical. So there's been when we talked about the alchemy of surrender, right? Some of that had to do with a physical transmutation that's happening in us. So some of these things, there's going to be a new level of openness and vibrancy in your body. Okay? This is going to be an embodied state. Right? And so some of those like lingering things that they're like, you can manage the symptoms, you can live with it. It kind of bothers your life, but it doesn't get in the way. Like those things that drain your energy, right? Gone, done, right? We're experiencing a physical resurgence, a physical vitality, a physical transmutation in this time, right? So that's time. That's happening as well. So, that Um, yeah. So just a quick recap, because this is a little bit of a shorter episode. Okay. There's these powers arising in you now. They're responsive to the conditions of the world in your life. They're empowering. They may be powers within you, pieces of yourself, identities within yourself that you've overlooked, you haven't identified with. Maybe it's like you're looking in one direction and they're coming in from the periphery, right? However, at this point, right, with the solstice approaching, there's been internal and external cues telling you what these powers are, and it's time to really listen, because these powers that are arising are going to be very, very important for full integration of self, for meeting in an empowered and responsive way the conditions of the world and of your life, right? You may have experienced a physical breaking down, illness, right? And possibly that's been multidimensional, emotional, mental, spiritual, right? There were a few days of just very deep lethargy I had even after I was coming back from being sick, right? And I experienced some really like way in there, right? You may have been experiencing that, though that's a final breaking down for this power to arise. Okay, so maybe you're in it, maybe you're coming out of it, right? And we've all experienced that in different ways. So just allow that, let it move through. You are now going to be receiving a lot of traction, all right, for the things that want to arise within you. And it's a matter more so of listening than of trying to do or force, right? The traction is going to be for the thing, the embodiment that only you can do, become, or create. Only you. All right, so this is that arising of self-actualization right now, and it's time. It's time for us. It's time for us now. Right? It's time for us to arise. It's happening. So allow that, listen deeply, and just allow it to come forward. And then lastly, just this lingering, right? This lingering, whatever, some things, they're just done. And you can let that be done. You can just let yourself be healed and let it be easy, right? We've reached the end of our tolerance for some of these things, and they can't come into the next cycle with us. So you might have a sense it could be physical, right? Could be a thought form, could be a person, whatever it is, let it go. And you're just going to know really clearly, because your energy and your attention is going to be on the creation, on the becoming. And it'll just be really easy to let those things fall away. So this is there is one more thing. So that's all. That's the recap. Powers arising. This 13th episode of When the Heart Leads, which wanted to be live, which is really exciting. But there is one more thing for us, just to kind of ground it all. And sometimes I use my books as an oracle, or I work. I should say use. I don't like, but I work with them as an oracle, and they're really powerful that way. And you can read them cover to cover. You can also just open to a page with a question in mind and just see what comes up. And I did that today, and I saw it did want to really be kind of the grounding, the anchoring aspect of this podcast episode, because it's offering a really, really, really deep message of hope. Okay, and that is what we need right now. Not just that hope of that I know that hope that feels like it arises and it leads nowhere, but that hope that comes from the divine promise that we're being offered right now. Right? And the divine will always follow through on their promises. So this is what I got for us today to kind of ground this whole episode. So this is from my memoir, Finding Home, a mystical memoir. And we are on, if you have the book, we're on page 44. Wow. Okay, that's an angel number that's been coming up a few times today. I didn't even notice that. We're on page 44. And it's the end of a section called, I believe, The Teachings of Water. Yeah, The Teachings of Water. So it's early on in the book. And if you're following along, you can open to page 44. If you if you're not, you don't have the book, whatever, just sit back and listen. This is kind of the grounding message the final message of this podcast episode. So I said, I wrote here, this path I've chosen, it suits me. The solitude and the adventure and the long, long days of listening. But some days this path feels narrow and rocky, like I'm miles from anyone who can hold me. I've given up everything I've ever known because I had to, because the known had grown too small for me. This was my promise, my vow, and deep down I know I wouldn't have it any other way. But some days I have to look back on all I've left behind. I have to remember to grieve. As I walked back today from the Basilica de Marie-Madeleine, the Basilica of Mary Magdalene in case you're... As I walked back today from the Basilica, the rain, which had been falling all day, finally lightened to a mist. The field in front of me was laden with purple flowers and bursting with stalks of glistening field grass, waving in a genial breeze. As I walked, the pristine countryside unrolled before me, a patchwork of buttery wheat fields and verdant leaves. And above it all arced a perfect rainbow. Butterflies danced around me as I stopped and gazed in wonder. The rainbow held colors in it and a depth I'd never seen before. I drank it in as raindrops shook from the trees above and scattered over me like a laugh, like a blessing, like a baptism. It was, of course, the promise after the cataclysm. It was hope shining through grief, the reminder of all the joy I held within me. It was a reminder, too, that the prism of color suspended above me, a breathtaking message of beauty, was refracted through water that had once lived in the deepest and darkest of wells. So we might feel that. We might need to take a moment and look back and allow ourselves to feel whatever we need to feel coming through this time that has been a deep time of challenge and initiation, right? In front of us now is that divine promise of hope, is that promise of joy, and that everything we've been through, everything we're going through, when we allow it and open and trust, that it can be transmuted into that breathtaking beauty that is our full, integrated, and refracted self. So, oh my goodness, everyone. What a moment to be here together. This has been the 13th episode of When the Heart Leads, and how exciting to have it be live, right? To have it be rolling live. I'm Dr. Kate Newburgh, founder of Books of Eden Publishing. For more information on my work, you can visit my website, booksofeden.com, or just reach out. I'm here. So let those powers arise. Let yourself feel that hope and know it's not a false hope. Right? It's a divine promise. All right. It's been so wonderful to connect with you across time and space. From my heart to yours, Until next time.